Welcome back to another episode of the Grassroots Tennis Podcast, a platform created to entertain, educate, and grow the game of tennis at all levels. My friends call me Ship, but this show isn't about me. We will be bringing you interviews with coaches, community leaders, and players, along with updates about tennis happening around the world. Tennis is a culture, and we are all writing tennis history together. Today, I'm here with the man, the myth, the legend himself, Mr. Jonathan Stokke, who I personally have a lot of respect for. He is the host of Baseline Intelligence, an excellent podcast that honestly was part of inspiring me to start my own podcast. I enjoyed it so much. Coach, welcome to the pod.
Hey, great to be here. And speaking of respect, I just watched you read that intro with no mistakes. I record my intro and have to edit it like 7 times. So good on you. That was perfect.
I love to read. What can I say? Something I've done my whole life, and I like dramatic reading. Maybe somebody will hear that, be inspired to hire me to do voiceovers. New careers coming. Who knows? One take, in and out. I'm efficient, guys. Give me the contract. That's what we want. So I have so many questions that I've been asking coaches, and you have this unique perspective, obviously, not just being a coach, but being someone that's had the opportunity to speak to a lot of really, really, really talented players, coaches, tennis minds. So I'm going to start my questions somewhere completely different than where I normally do. And then if I still have time, out of respect for your time, I will come back to maybe some of my classic questions that I'm a big fan of. But since I have the opportunity to pick your brain, I've got to go there first. Here's what I got to know. You've been hosting your podcast for a while now. Every episode, I went today and I re-listened to your first 5 episodes just to kind of get fired up about today. That's a lot of content. Here's my first question. What is something you learned from a guest that blew your mind?
Oof. Wish you'd prepared me for that one, because now I've recorded about 42. I've told my wife that I learn 2 to 3 things that I've never heard of before from every episode. So either someone says something a different way, a concept I've been familiar with, but they used words that I've never heard, and I go, oh my God, like game changer. Um, man, so that's really difficult.
We can
I
come
would
back
say
to it if you
no,
want.
no, no, no.
Okay.
I'll give you one.
Okay.
Well, it's tough to give you one. Geez, I want to give you like 4. One thing, anyone who knows me, I will like talk hypotheticals, theoreticals, and one thing I've never been a believer in is momentum. Like I don't understand this mysterious force called momentum. And so I had a coach, Alistair Hyam, come on. I think it was in the single digits. It was maybe 7 through 12, somewhere around there. And he was explaining your 4 performance factors. And he was saying when you're in a match, you have your technique, you have your physical conditioning, you have your emotion, and you have your tactics. And he said, when you go into a match, 2 of those things will not change. Like you're not going to change your technique in the middle of a match, right? And you're not going to somehow get in better shape in the middle of the match.
I
But you
wish.
can, yeah, but you can change your emotional state and you can change your tactics. And so if you see someone go on a 5-game run, they win 5 games in a row, or they lose 5 games in a row, a lot of times it's either emotionally you have changed, you've either gotten upset and now you're pouting for 20 minutes, or you're super excited about what's going on, or you've changed your tactics. And for me, that was a very simple way. Of course, runs in the score happen, but why do they change, and why do people go on these 6-1 and then it's 1-6? Like, how can that possibly happen? To me, that makes no sense. But now that I can kind of break it down to those 4 performance factors, and you realize it's probably just an emotional shift, then you realize when you are down or you've lost 3 games in a row, you go, man, if I just change my mindset and change my energy, I can kind of put a stop to that run. I just really like the way he explained that. But like I said, if you want to do another podcast, I could give you 100 things, because there's been so many great things from great players and great coaches.
I could do a probably 30-part, series, Coach's Corner, with Coach Stokke. And I would probably never run out of questions. I could talk to a brick wall for an hour, so I could probably talk to you for 10 easily. I like what you picked. It aligns itself perfectly with one of my personal just things that I always harp on when I'm coaching. I'm a big believer that there are so many times where we're playing. There's this misconception that, oh, I'm losing, I've got to raise my level. And honestly, it's not that. It's your best may just not be better than someone else's best. So you have to find a way to disrupt the other person. And that can be emotionally. But essentially, you have to find a way to, whether it be tactically or whatever it be, to bring their level down. And those emotions are huge in that momentum. And I've seen it myself from my style of play. I'm always trying to throw the bathroom sink at people, so to speak. And for me, momentum happens when I finally find something the other person hates. If you hate high balls to your backhand, I'm play high balls to your backhand. If when I serve and volley you can't pass me, I'm coming to the net on every single ball. Period. So I love that, and I love the way that you broke it down to four factors. That's pretty cool. As a coach, and then obviously people that just go out and play, something that I think would be really valuable to hear from you is, what is your favorite drill you learned from an interview?
Ooh.
Or game? Is there anything that you're just like, wow, that's awesome, I've got to do that with my players?
I haven't really received too many drills because there's no magic. I ask coaches this all the time. I'm like, hey, what do you do with this player, or the player?
Right.
Hey, what do you do before a match? And they're like, there's no secret sauce. Um, one thing that keeps coming up is depth and hitting through the middle.
Yeah.
People keep talking about that. And so I set up lines on the court. We'll do hitting drills. We'll do bonus points when people hit deep in a rally and force an error, or hit deep and then come in on the next ball. So like I try to find creative ways to use the concept and make it a game. But yeah, there's a couple key themes that keep popping up. It's depth, it's hitting through the middle. And then, if I always go, hey, what's your best advice? Or, what separates the top players from the average players? I'm always expecting to hear serve or forehand or movement. And it's always mentality and competitive spirit. Always. Every coach, every player, they keep saying the same thing. And I'm like, man, okay, so that becomes a stress in our practice where we go, hey, we are going to be physical. You are going to try your best every point, because if it wasn't about that, these top players wouldn't just be making something up. They're telling you that for a reason. And so it's a very, very common theme. But yeah, I would say just on court, it's the depth, it's hitting through the middle. And then, I just try to find creative ways to use that in our practices.
I love that answer too. I watched a video of Federer once, and obviously he's not breaking down the mental side of what he's doing, but I was analyzing it, and he was going through a training session. One of the first things he does is he's hitting balls up the middle from the baseline, but they have him mic'd up, and he's talking about what he's doing, and he says, "I'm gonna start airing the ball out. I'm gonna try to hit the baseline." Well, he doesn't say that, but what is that? I'm a big believer in purposeful practice. He's never just mindlessly hitting. There's always a target in mind. And that in itself makes it a more effective practice, even in the warm up, because he's hitting for depth and trying to hit that baseline every single time. And then also, speaking to what you just said, I'm a big believer. Players, when they come off the court, shouldn't just be physically tired, they should be mentally tired. And if practice sessions are more difficult than the matches, especially mentally, if you're doing drills where you're having with your coach and you're having 100% success rate in doing what they're asking of you, it's too easy. It needs to be something that's stretching you, so when you get in the match, you can just rely on that because you've done things that are harder than that, and you can trust the work that you put in. That's how I feel personally. But yeah, you should, the more practice sessions you can have where you're both mentally and physically tired are obviously huge. You've had the opportunity to pick the brain uh, of so many talented coaches, and you've been coaching yourself for a long time, both in an individual way through your coaching, but then also at the college level. And you talk about that on your podcast, that you've done some of that as well, I believe, for Duke. Did you coach for
Yep.
Duke for a little while, right? And now that you've had the opportunity to pick the brain of so many people, what advice do you wish you could go back and tell yourself for when you first started coaching?
When I first started coaching,
Yeah.
interesting. I would have spent a lot more time trying to become a coach. I think a lot of people, I know it sounds silly, but a lot of people, I graduate from Duke and I was a good player and I was coached by good players and good coaches. And so, oh, that makes me a good coach. And so I just went right in and, oh, here are my experiences. And I know how to hit the ball and I can tell you what was taught to me. I didn't spend that much time learning the fundamentals, trying to get differing opinions on people and hear the things were worded and how people learn and all these different elements of being a coach. I just thought because I had a racket in my hand and a basket of balls that makes me a coach. And so I wish I had spent more time in the beginning just learning the craft. Um, that's one of the biggest things. I also would say learning to use language that's simple to communicate maybe more layered tactics or strategies. So one thing that Brad Stein said, he was on maybe like 6-7 episodes ago. When someone goes cross court to you and you go down the line, he calls that a Sydney. Okay. And so when anyone who's ever been coached by him, if he says Sydney, they go, oh yeah, that's when, someone goes cross court to me and then I change directions down the line. But he can communicate that thought with one word.
Mm-hmm.
And so there's much more going on. And if I could go back in time, that I can be super chatty or maybe elaborate on something and make it sound more confusing, I wish I would go, hey, right from the start, let's really pick our language. Let's have simple words that kids can kind of rely on and go, okay, he said this word. I can see that picture in my brain. And now I know what it is. I think I would try to do that a little bit better when I was a younger coach.
I love that advice as well. I have a feeling I'm going to be saying that after just about everything that you say. When you finally decided to invest in yourself and your personal growth as specifically as a coach, it is a little bit of a transition from the mindset that you have as a player. I uniquely always felt like I had a coach's mindset because I was a late bloomer and I was self-taught. I had to figure out ways to essentially coach myself, so it was a little different, whereas and I didn't play at as high of a level as you did, so it can be different. I started off with I'm going to read as many books as I can, I'm going to watch as many videos as I can, I'm going to review as many drills as I can, and that was where I put in a lot of hard yards. But for those people that don't, it is different, and learning to communicate, uh, I like where you went with each thing kind of triggers something for them, and there's this, it's almost like you're speaking your own language. You're forming a language with your players with making those connections, and I really like that. Could you give us uh, from when you actually did start investing in yourself as a coach? I'm sure you've read a book at some point. That's a guess. You went to Duke. I don't know. Have you read any coaching books? And when you started investing in yourself, that really changed your philosophy or shaped your coaching style?
Honestly, not many tennis books. What my favorite book, the Bible, is Peak by Anders Ericsson, and that's all about how you become an expert at something. And I'm fascinated by the brain and how people learn. And I got a guy coming on. He's the author of The Habit Mechanic and why people know things, but then they don't do them.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's the type of stuff I read. I spend all day on the tennis court and then I come home, talk on the podcast and do the Instagram. And so I like having a little break, but also, yeah, the books I read are all designed on how to communicate better or how someone learns more efficiently or how your practice can be more efficient so you're not wasting your time. But if anyone out there is looking to improve at anything, Peak by Anders Ericsson is great, and it's all about deliberate practice and purposeful practice and how you can improve so you don't just practice being the same way. But that is my all-time favorite book that I read kind of when I was in my journey of development early on, and it's been great.
Could you give us something that you learned from your process of interviewing all these great tennis minds that was so good that you immediately used it with your players? Something that you just took and was like, I'm going to use that. That's applicable right now. What would that be?
Yeah, yeah. Again, so hard because now it's been almost 2 years. But one of the most recent ones, which has worked wonders, Kelly Jones came on a couple episodes ago and he was talking about volleys and doubles and transition. And he said when he has someone who's learning how to come to the net, he has them hit every volley cross court. And I heard that and was like, okay, like that seems a bit extreme, right? Like, don't you want to keep the volley in front of you? Don't you want to volley the way you're moving? Sometimes down the line is open court. That's very different from anything I've ever heard. And he said, well, when someone's learning, number one, they're not very good at the net. And so the easiest volley to hit is a cross court volley.
Mhm.
Number two, they have no idea what they're doing. So if you just preset the target, now they don't have to think. They come in, backhand volley cross, forehand volley cross. So there's less decision making. It's simple. They're always trying the easiest volley. He kind of said, if the line is wide open, then hit it there. Fine. But unless there's just an easy winner, just go cross. And so people come in, they hit better volleys. They're not thinking. So they feel more comfortable. A lot of times a cross court volley is the right play anyway. And so it's honestly, I have a bunch of girls who they're usually afraid of the net. A 15-year-old junior girl player generally doesn't want to come to the net. And we have done that. And in just a few months, they love it. Like we start off every day with a balance drill that he kind of recommended in the podcast. We do transition things. Every time they get a volley, they go, oh, yeah, I should have gone cross court. And it just gets clearer and clearer in their minds. And their confidence has improved incredibly. So that's just a recent one, but that one has worked wonders for my junior girls.
I might have to change the way that I teach the volley now. I do something similar. When they're first learning, I actually tell them to take the ball back where it came, like back where it was. Essentially, I feel like the change of direction on anything. I feel like my volleyers, when they first learn, tend to overswing. And so I'm like, take the ball back where it came from, use the pace that's on the ball, and try to essentially put it at someone's feet or rush them, hit it through the court, and then close and try to get that second volley. And then I say, but you can go away from them or change the direction. If you get in fast enough to get the ball before it drops below the net, then you're allowed to go wherever you want. So if it's up high, anywhere you want. If it's down low, you have to take it back where it came from. Your goal is to essentially make someone uncomfortable by rushing them, putting the pressure on them of coming up with a good lob or a good passing shot. Hopefully, you're essentially creating a forced error. A lot of these players, maybe intermediate players, or getting the 1-2 punch. A lot of volley points finish with that 1-2 punch. You set up the first, you finish on the second. If you close hard after that first volley, most of the time the second one is above the net. And so then you could go wherever you want. So it tends to work out pretty good for the people that I'm coaching. But I kind of like the way that you're saying it.
Well, his thing, again, he was number one in the world in doubles. His daughter, I think she was number one in college or won an individual doubles title. He's not saying that you do that all the time. He was just like, he was saying, hey, you're starting off with someone. That's where you start.
Yeah.
And once they master that, he's like, of course, then you can layer, like, there are so many things I try to tell people. Oh, in this little situation, make sure you shade line, or in this situation, make sure you go short behind them.
Yeah.
And for me, that's very simple because I've done that for now almost 30 years. And they're just picking it up and they're going, oh my God, I got these 15 different things and I still have to hit a volley and the ball's coming quickly and it's so overwhelming. I just rather stay on the baseline and hit cross court. And so his thing was build their confidence. It's easier to hit cross court. And then you can just give them one little layer, every couple months. And then they have the nuance that you're talking about. But like I said, from a confidence standpoint, that was huge for my players.
No, I'm definitely going to give that a try and set and see if I can get the results that or quality I'm looking for more quickly. I think that is really great advice and obviously coming from a great tennis mind. So it's definitely worth trying. I have flown through some of my different questions, so I'm excited I get to hit you with some of my normal questions. Although really quickly, I want to say for those people listening out there, if you've not went and listened to the Baseline Intelligence podcast, you really need to. One of my favorite things that I ever heard, which I thought was one of the ultimate compliments that someone could give you, Mr. Rajiv Ram. What is it?
Believe it's Ram. But
Okay.
I've heard it pronounced so differently in the last couple of years. It actually makes me wonder. But yeah, we played doubles for 4 years. I'm 99% sure it's Ram.
Okay. I originally thought it was that, and then I heard someone say something else. Anyway, Rajiv Ram made it to number one in the world. Obviously, he has had a great career. A career that a lot of people would dream of. He's had a lot of success, and on your podcast, he said, had you chose to essentially go pro with him as a doubles team, that you guys could have made a heck of a run at it. That I believe that was what the quote was. So for all of you listening out there, when you're listening to Coach Stokke on the Baseline Intelligence podcast, or even right now, you're essentially listening to someone that Rajiv himself said they could have been the number one doubles team in the world. I might be butchering that quote. I don't know, but we're going to give that to you here on the Grassroots Tennis Podcast, the ultimate sign of respect. Clearly, you've earned it from all the hard work you've put in. So
he's a friend. He's a friend of mine. So he might be a little generous with his projection of what we could do. But it's been cool for me to see his success. And, we played in the US Open. We were 17 years old. So it was 2001. And then he won it in 2021 and 22. So 20 years later, he's winning the US Open. He went through, obviously through college for a year and so many years in the beginning where he was 50 to 75 and he was just grinding and hanging around. So for me, like unbelievably cool to see this like late renaissance in his career where he's number one in the world at age 37, 38. That's been wild to see. So we're friends. He can say nice things about me and I'll take it. But I think I don't want to discredit the 20 years of hard work he put in to get there. But if he wants to say that, I'll take that as fact. I'm not going to argue.
Yeah, no, I had to go there. I felt like that was a great compliment. It had to come up at some point. No matter what his status is as your friend, that part could have been left out. Although I feel like that in itself, that's a great thing too. So, all right, I need to know. This happens to all of us. We all take our losses. Who was the first person to really kick your butt?
The first person to really kick my butt.
It's usually traumatic. There's usually a loss that we all take that is, if you think back, or just a terrible loss. There's usually a memory.
I mean, I can remember. Well, no, I can't remember the first person to kick my butt. Although there were plenty when I was younger. But in college, I lost 2 matches. Well, I served and volleyed and chipped and charged. And also, by the way, my biggest pet peeve is how slow people play. So, I mean, I get a ball, it's 8 seconds, I'm ready to go. Like, what are we doing here? So I was a very quick player that played into it, but I lost 2 matches in under 45 minutes. I lost to Benjamin Becker at National Indoors. Duke was playing Baylor in the quarterfinals. He beat me 2-1. And I mean, I'm serving and volleying. I'm hitting a good serve, and he's just lacing return winners in the corner. And I'm going, okay, this is not good. I have one massive strength, and it doesn't impact this guy at all. And, 6'2", then he's up a break early, and it's like, okay, I should have walked around and taken a bathroom break and whatever. But he absolutely massacred me. Actually, I can think of one more fun one. I didn't qualify for US Open Juniors, and I kept going and signing up as a lucky loser because I was in doubles with Rajiv.
Mm-hmm.
So why not? And they played matches Monday, they played matches Tuesday. And then for some reason, there was one match Wednesday that hadn't been played in the singles draw. And so I was like the 8th lucky loser. I showed up Wednesday morning. I was like, I don't know, might as well. What else am I going to do? No one else came. And one of those players pulled out. So I got to play Robin Soderling first round at the US Open Juniors. Okay. And I'd actually beat him in Orange Bowl in like the 14s or 16s. So like I had this weird thing like, oh, great. Like I can, great. I know how to beat this guy. Awesome.
Yeah.
So I called my dad, who was in Princeton, New Jersey at the time. And I was like, hey, come up, like get on the train. Like I'm going to be playing. And so he gets there, as quickly as he can. And he shows up and he's like 30 minutes after the match has started, 6-0, 5-0, down. Just an absolute beating. And this, I mean, we're not even in the same stratosphere as players. It was very similar. Guy was ripping my serve, serving bombs. I'm playing quickly, which, obviously when you're losing, you shouldn't do. And I remember there was a rain delay. And my coach was like, hey, you should get on the bike. Like you're about to go back out again. And I'm like, I'm down 6-0, 5-0. I'm not getting on the bike. Like I just want to get out of here. Like I'm not turning this match around. Like this guy is on a different planet. But those 2 particular beatings stand out to me for sure.
As someone who's also a serve and volley player, I was immediately feeling your pain on that first one, Mike. I had that happen a few times in college. Not the same level of match, not going to even pretend to be even the level you're on. But when your whole game starts with your serve, there's a level of confidence with that. And when nothing is working, you are like, you can feel so lost and it will go so fast. So fast. It's rough. And that second story is exactly what I was looking for. That is brutal. Absolutely brutal.
Yeah.
Um,
So my dad came up and saw one game. He saw me finally lose that. I think it was 0-0. Maybe it was 0-1, but it was bad. It was bad.
hey, he can say he got to watch you play singles in the US Open Juniors though, right?
Yeah.
So that's good thing he came. I'm just
Yeah.
saying
Could
that's great.
could be worse.
Uh so obviously between your own training when you were playing and now coaching, uh, I would love to give you an opportunity what to share. What do you think a good practice session looks like for it to be of quality? What are the things that it needs to have for it to be a quality practice session?
Are you saying out of the player or out of the actual structure of the practice?
I would say it could be either. You can take either route. I Either way. I would say from the structure of the practice first and foremost, but then what are you looking for from a player, or what should a player expect of himself too? Whatever way you want to go with it.
Yeah, I mean, from the player is an easier answer, so I'll go with that first.
Okay.
Full engagement physically and mentally. So I don't, I mean, of course, maybe there's a time where it's just a little rhythm hit before a tournament. Okay. But most of the time, I want them really engaged mentally, either reinforcing a tactic, a shot they're working on, or they're technically working on something and they are just all in. It's not something they can do kind of 50% or mindlessly. I want them all in and then physically full speed the whole time. So they've got to be all in on that practice, or I really don't think they're certainly not going to improve at the rate they want to. It's so hard to improve anyway, let alone if you're doing something at 60% speed or with 60% focus. So that one's easy. In terms of a practice, I mean, I'm maybe a little biased how I grew up because I played baseball. And so I grew up with two backhands. When I was 10, 11, 12, I had my right hand on top, my left hand on bottom, and that's how I hit my forehand. So it was actually a lefty backhand. And I was not technically trained, but I learned how to compete. I learned where to hit the ball. And so I value those things over anything else. Of course, technique is important. I work on it a lot with my players, but to me, a good practice involves learning how to compete, learning where to hit the ball, learning where the ball's going to come back. Because as long as your technique has like the bare minimum of the fundamentals, you can figure out how to make a ball. But if you have no idea where to hit it and no idea where it's coming, you're just going to be a good looking loser. You have beautiful strokes, but you're going to lose. And so I think a lot of practices at least have to have that tactical element where the kid is constant or the adult is constantly challenged. Why am I hitting it here? Where is that ball going to come back? And kind of learning all those things. And the more you think about it, the easier it becomes. We talked earlier about like that common language, but a lot of times players just say, I just don't want to think. I play better when I don't think. And it's like, I agree with that. But if you never think, then you will never learn anything. So when I play tennis now, or when I do anything, I don't feel like I'm thinking about 150 things. But if you ask me in hindsight what factored into my decision to serve here, I might tell you 7 things. It's just I process it very quickly because I've been practicing it for 30 years, as opposed to an amateur who might have been doing it for a month. So, people out there, when they have that mindset of like, oh man, it's so overwhelming. When you learned long division in second grade, that was overwhelming. And now that's very simple for most people. So work at it. It gets put in your memory. It's easy for you to process. And then moving forward, now you're a smarter player who also doesn't have to think so much when you're playing, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, that's totally makes sense. I love it. Um, Trying to go through these as quickly as I can. If you could go back and give advice to yourself as a player when you were like 13, what advice would you give yourself?
Quit trying to be the player who's doing something. So I serve in volley, great, offensive. That doesn't mean I have to hit an ace. I can hit a nice body serve. I can hit a solid volley right in the middle of the box. I used to be someone, I was a good athlete. I was a shot maker. We had a thing at Duke called Shot of the Day, SOD. And like my goal in my 4 years was like, I want to come away with every day. I want to have shot of the day. But to do that, I also had to try 75 ridiculously dumb shots, which not helping me get better. Um, so that would be one is, make sure I'm not the doer, just simple. If the other person wants to try to come up with shots, they're not going to be able to do that consistently. The other concept is something I got from golf. Now that's like my playing passion is playing golf, and it gets me in the mind of my tennis players because I'm not great at it. So I can kind of figure out what it's like to learn and be frustrated. And one thing in golf is you don't really hit the ball where you're aiming ever. So a pro golfer misses the fairway. Tiger Woods misses the fairway. I mean, how is that possible? Right. And if you put a cone down on the court and said, Roger and Rafa, hit cross court, see if you can hit the cone, they don't hit the cone every time. They might hit close to the cone, but they don't hit the exact cone. And so I would go back and tell myself that concept and go, hey, when you aim in the middle of the deuce box, let's say 6 3/4 feet, I think it is, from the sideline. If you aim there, you're going to accidentally hit near the line a lot. You're rarely going to hit it exactly to your target. I used to always aim close to the lines. And if I pulled it off, oh my God, I'm amazing. But when I missed, I'm missing in the alley. I'd much rather accidentally hit in the middle of the court than hit in the alley, obviously. Right. So I wish I would have explained that concept to me about just because you're aiming for a smart target doesn't mean you're always going to hit it there. You're still going to hit plenty of winners. And then your good shots or whatever will be in the middle of the box. And that's still a great play. So kind of those two concepts for sure, I would have told myself.
Let's say hypothetically a player comes to you and they, by all definitions, are, I will say, good. I know that's a very loose term, but we don't know who's going to listen to this. Essentially, there's nothing that immediately sticks out about their footwork, forehand, backhand, serve, volleys. They are essentially a tournament level player or a competition level player. And they need you, or you want to take them from good to great, great to excellent, or even excellent to elite. What is something that you really, when someone is trying to really raise their level, what would you have them focus on? Whether it be something about their habits, something about habits and routines, a specific drill that you just know when people do this, they're going to get better. Is there anything that comes to mind that you're like, if they come to me and they really want to improve, what would you pick immediately for them to focus on if they're trying to raise their level?
Tough question because everyone always has certain strengths and weaknesses. So the answer is never the same. But the concept of picking that smarter target, splitting the box in half, is something I tell everybody because I have not coached a single person whose control is better than 4 or 5 feet in either direction of the target when the ball is in live play. So there's not a single person I'm like, oh my God, you actually control this within 3 feet. You can aim closer. So that is something I tell everyone. One other general concept we've just been stressing with our kids this summer is one of the coaches at our program has just labeled the shots 1, 2, 3, 4. So going cross court off a cross court is a number 1. When your opponent goes line and you take that ball cross court, that's a 2. When your opponent goes line and you take it back line, that's a 3. And when they go cross court to you and you change direction and go down the line, what Brad Stein calls a Sydney, that's a 4. And 1s are the easiest to hit. You're not changing direction, you're going cross court. 4 is the hardest to hit. You're changing directions. Okay. There's a time and a place to use all 4 shots. Generally speaking, you should be trying lots of 1s and 2s, very few 3s and 4s. Also, generally speaking, if your opponent is going to hit a winner on you or really hurt you, they should be hurting you with 3s and 4s, not 1s and 2s. So you should be trying simple shots and you should be making your opponent beat you with difficult shots. So like far too often, if we're in a rally, I'll hit cross court to your forehand and I'll see you'll hit cross court back to me and you'll stretch me. And I'm always like, man, you just let that guy stretch you with the easiest possible shot he could have tried. Like that gets me. If you had changed directions and gone down the line and ran me to my backhand, I go, hey, at least you made him try a tough shot. Like he can't keep that up. And so just labeling those numbers and kind of the concept of, hey, I'm always trying simple things and I'm making my opponent try difficult things. I think that's a great way to think on the tennis court.
I have a very similar coaching philosophy. And before I even get into what I wanted to say about that, if you guys want to find a video about the 1, 2, 3, 4, that Coach Stokke is just talking about. I believe you just put a video on your social media. Could you tell them where to find your social media?
Yeah, it's just at Stokke Tennis, Stokke Tennis. The Instagram's a funny thing. I started that 2 years ago when I was kind of coaching privately, and it's kind of taken off. But yeah, I just put the shots down and ask people what they think is the easiest shot to hit and what's the hardest. And I think most of them saw it the way I did. Of course, there's a time where a number 4 shot is the right shot to try.
Mm-hmm.
Like, of course, but definitely easier overall to hit a 1. So yeah, if you go on Stokke Tennis, I put a boy up there just kind of hitting the shots and ask people for their feedback. But it's just a
Got
nice,
lots of
simple way to.
feedback. People like to share their opinions. I noticed. I
They,
was reading through
oh, they
them.
love, yeah, they love sharing their opinions.
Yeah. Back to what I was going to say, though, coaching philosophy wise, I'm a big believer that junior players change the direction of the ball way too much. One of my favorite plays in tennis, something that just to me is chef's kiss, feels so good every time, is when I hit a winner or win a point just by simply hitting a ball behind someone, because they're always so frustrated. And if you want to do something that's going to bring someone's level down, you want to frustrate them. And what makes someone more frustrated than they hit cross court? You kind of disguise your shot, you go back cross court, you wrong foot them, the ball's behind them. They feel like they could have reached it, but they really couldn't have, but they think they should have because they're so close to it. Oh, it's such a good feeling. It just, you know, they're mad. It's great. But I always tell my players, the easiest shot, the ball is traveling with momentum. The ball has momentum. Anytime you try to redirect momentum, you're more likely not just to miss, but to catch your frame, to make a silly mistake. When you hit that ball back, whatever you are originally doing it, use their pace and go back. And then with each time, try to see if you can hit that target with just a little more depth. Hit that target just a little bit harder, a little more spin or a little more depth until you get that short ball you really want. And then if you really want them to hate you forever, as you move forward, line up like you're about to hit the open court and just very smoothly hit it right behind them. I guarantee they will hate your guts forever if you beat them and you're doing stuff like that. You don't have to make the game hard. If you are a person playing tennis and you are beating yourself with 20 to 30 change of direction, forehand airs, go back to high percentage until it makes sense. There is no reason to beat yourself. Work on your depth, hitting more spin, and hitting more pace to the high percentage targets. I loved what you said, but I had to say it because that's my favorite shot in tennis. I had to say it.
The one thing, I'm never sure, like kids these days, like I said, oh, I got to interview Thomas Johansson. Like that's someone I grew up watching, right? And he won the
Yeah.
2002 Australian Open. And I always ask what the best advice is for the 4-0 player or whatever. And he's like, just hit cross court. Why are you going down the line? Why are you trying to go inside in? Like make your first serve and go cross court. Just see how that works for you. And like you said, everyone always wants to do something. I got to change. I got to do so much. And he's like, just hit deep cross court and just see how that works. Works great.
If you serve and volley, I will also say it's really great too. If you hit the serve low enough, the ball's floating. What does someone, guys, listening to this, what does someone do after they hit a serve return? They recover middle. So when you take the volley right back where it came from, if you actually hit it and it doesn't set up and you hit it in a way that it's skidding through the court right behind them, they're already pushing off back to the middle. So, best case scenario for them, they're probably blocking. And then if you close hard enough, you're getting an easy volley. Obviously, you have to practice that. But I think sometimes people try to do way too much with the volley too. So stop overcomplicating things. Keep it simple. It's the best advice. Anyway, yep. I need to stop talking because I want to pick your brain. But it's nice to talk tennis with somebody that does this every day, obviously. Okay. Is there anything you'd like to see change about the way that tennis is currently structured at the junior level in the United States? Like the way the current structure of tournaments, the way it works, is there anything you'd like to see change? And if not, is there anything you'd like to see change with the way college tennis or professional tennis are currently structured? Are there any of those that you'd like to give your 2 cents on? Because someone important is going to eventually listen to this and they're going to take our advice.
Yeah, I mean, nothing is super efficient. Some of the USTA tournaments, it's changed a lot since I was there. I think it was Ronnie maybe was on your podcast, but
yeah,
I used to like the old sectional qualifier to the Southern,
Mm-hmm.
I don't really pay attention to the L1 through 7 for juniors or how it all
Hmm.
works. I just want my kids playing matches.
Yep.
So I don't really care if what they're ranked, or I don't know. And when I was at Duke, I didn't know what anyone was ranked. I knew their UTRs. I knew, I could tell their level, but if you said what was their national ranking, I have no idea. Nor do I care. I don't even know how you get it. Um, so I don't follow that too much. I just know sometimes the travel or things I hear, like I had one kid told me he hasn't played a third set. They just play breakers. And I was like, huh, like
Oh,
I wish you'd play. He's like, I've never played a third set. And he's not that old, but I'm like, wow, like really? I mean, I haven't played that many 10-point breakers in my life. And now you're the opposite. So, I wish they'd play more third sets. I know
hmm.
there's certain reasons why that could happen. Um, but yeah, my big thing is I just want kids playing all the time. When I picked up a racket, I was playing a tournament 2 weeks later. I was like, why would I want to practice? Don't you want to play? Like that's why I want it. So let's go. Let's play a tournament. Okay, fine. I lost. I'll figure it out. Good. Now I know what I stink at. And so I always want my players in events. Hopefully it's, financially feasible or whatever. But yeah, the structure, I don't, you want to play a UTR, you want to play a PTT, you want to play a USTA, as long as you're getting matches and you're recording them and you're learning something, all good.
I'm a big believer that juniors don't play matches with adults enough. So for anyone out there that's never had the opportunity to play a full third set, something I know is that all the old blood and men's opens, uh, they're big believers that the better player is going to win if they play that full third. And a lot of them don't like tiebreakers. They definitely don't want to play no ad with you. Old people do not want to do that. So if you've never done that, sign up for, look online, find a men's open, women's open, something like that, that is regular scoring. So you even have that opportunity to do that.
Was that
Is just
a
some advice.
was that a roundabout way of calling me old?
No, I actually have no idea how old you are. What are you, like 35? I have no
But
idea.
they see that nice recovery. I'm 39. But
Okay.
I'm over here barking about third sets. And oh yeah, all these old people love third sets. I'm just saying.
No, I've I started running super funny. I was a tournament director of a tournament for the first time when I was 18. And thank your tournament directors if they're good at it. I'm a big believer. I might be the best tournament director in the United States. We always get done in a timely manner, and yeah, I don't waste time, and we things usually run smoothly unless the weather wants to get in the way. And even still, usually people leave happy. But anyway, when attempted to run an adult open, and everyone was very much my senior, obviously, and yeah, they're the only people you can't make happy. It was really annoying. I don't do that anymore. I don't run those kind of events because those people are grouchy. Anyway, all right, moving on. Um, do you have any tennis hot takes? Do you have something that you're just, or even just something that you're really passionate about?
A tennis hot take. Could you give me an example
I
of
could
one
give
that
you
you've heard?
so many. Oh my gosh, I just sit and think about tennis all day long. The easiest one to explain, I'll give you one. I think that professional events should have backdraws. And I also think that somebody the other day's hot take was, dude, if I traveled 10 hours and my favorite player is Grigor Dimitrov and he messes up and loses in the first round, yeah, I can watch the other great tennis, but how cool would it be if in the backdraw they're playing fast four, no ad, given every match that they win in the back, they play all the way out to third place. They get 5 points and a paycheck for every match that they play on those courts, different courts. You're allowed to be loud, rowdy, music playing the whole time, make it an event. And then if you want, play them all the way back to the front draw. Whoever wins it, they got to beat them twice. It's back to normal rules once they get. I don't know. I'm just saying that it's time to play around with this sport. That's a hot take. Anyway, different hot take. Somebody the other day said they think at all levels you should play lets on serves. You shouldn't redo the serve. And I kind of liked it. I was like, hey, they didn't like get fired up, but that's something they really think should happen. So anyway,
The serve thing, there's this guy, Nicholas Mejia, I think is how you pronounce his name. I want to say he's from Colombia. He was like a top 10 ITF kid.
okay.
And this was like 5 years ago when they changed the ITF junior rule that if your serve hit the net, you're just going to play it. And he was complaining about it. And I was recruiting for Duke, watching a match. And he's like, this is so stupid. Like, what happens if it's break point and they hit a serve and it hits the net and dribbles over? And I go, yeah, that would suck. I go, what happens if it's break point and you hit a return and it hits the net and it dribbles over. I go, what's the difference? It's just
It's
one more
not.
ball. And he looks at me and he goes, oh my God, you're right. And he had this super, like, I was like asking his coach, he kept saying, he goes, oh my God, you're right. That's so true. And I looked at his coach. I'm like, is he messing with me or is he being serious? He's like, I think he's being serious. He's like, I think you just convinced him. But I mean, obviously when you're hitting a serve, you're faster. It's lower over the net. It does hit the net more than other shots. So I get it that people don't love it. I know at the college level, people just would hook all the time and just say it hit the
Yep.
net if it was an ace. So
Yeah.
you eliminate that a little bit. I honestly don't think it's that big of a deal. I mean, in all my matches at Duke, 10 years, well, 4 years as a player, 10 years as a coach, I cannot remember a single serve net cord that I thought impacted a match in any way. Like, oh my God, that decider against UNC and it, this huge, I don't remember anything like that. It all evens out. So yeah, that's a lukewarm take. I agree with that. I don't think that's that controversial, but no, I got no hot takes for you. Nothing
Man.
interesting.
All right, that's fine. I won't be able to clip your hot take. Like those usually make great for social media like moments when people talk about it. So I'll just pick something boring instead. No, I'm just kidding. I'll pick a
Yeah.
clip of me talking about how you could have been the number one doubles team in the world with Rajiv, and we'll
Yeah.
move on from there.
I'm not
Um,
upset about that.
I'm on my last three questions. I'll try to make them quick. Could you tell me
Mhm.
what your happiest tennis moment is?
Happiest.
Yeah. What was a great moment?
Great moment. I would say my senior year, we had come when I went into Duke, we had 5 freshmen. Duke had not lost an ACC match in 10 years, 12 years, something like that. The ACC wasn't as strong, but Duke was a very good team. The ACC got very strong in my 4 years. UVA, obviously now they've won back to back, but they became top 5. Miami was top 15. UNC was top 15. Florida State was top 15. So it was a very strong conference. We won it my freshman year. My middle 2 years, UVA won it. My senior year, we were down 3-0 in the finals. And our best points by a mile were the doubles point, 3 singles, and 5 singles. We had a Portuguese guy at 3 who was unbelievable, never lost. And we had a Bulgarian guy at 5, just a rock. And we come out and we lose doubles. And at 3 and 5, we lose in straights and quickly. And so we're like, oh, okay, that's great. Like, we're about to lose this. And I ended up winning my match at 2. Our Ludovic Walter, our number 1 player, beat Samdev Devarman at 1 singles.
That's a
Samdev
great
ended up
win.
being top 6. Great win. Ended up being top 60. Joey Addis beat Tret Huey at 4. Tret Huey was a top 50 doubles player, I believe. And it came down to 6 singles. And one of my best friends, he's actually here in Charleston right now. He's bought a house down here. Stephen Armitage. He had torn his ACL the year before. And he's just coming back. He's playing 6 singles. He's definitely not full speed, not the player he was. And he won the first set, lost the second in a devastating tiebreaker, and then ended up winning the third set. And most of the third set was played with everybody watching. And he clinched the ACCs for us. We won 4-3. So we got to finish on an ACC championship and like watching my best friend who had an awful year of rehab and kind of trying to find his game for him to clinch it. Like that was an incredible
And he
memory
was
for
coming
our
off
team and for him.
what injury?
He tore his ACL.
So that man got back and he got both an ACL and an ACC. That's pretty
Yeah.
nice. That's a
Nice. Yeah.
that's a good moment. I'm sure he would probably say that's one of his favorite moments too, honestly. That
100%.
it's a dream. They make movies about stuff like that. Have you tried to sell the rights to that one? I mean,
I, I have not, but his uncle is a movie producer. So I'm sure if he wanted to look into it, he could probably do that.
he needs to. That's the clip. We'll clip that. We'll send it. Okay. I want like
Yeah.
half of 1% for in suggesting it. Anyway, okay. So uh we won't do the math right now. Here at the Grassroots Tennis Pod, we're big believers in giving people their flowers. Who is someone that is underappreciated in the tennis community?
Underappreciated. I can only speak from my perspective of just not knowing about it. I would say Vic Braden.
Okay.
And obviously he's, passed away, but I didn't become familiar with his information until a couple years ago. I'm like, I wish so much of this stuff I had known and that coaches had taught me. Um, so I would say him number one. Someone currently who should get their flowers. God,
Yeah,
you ask some tough questions.
I like to ask
Hard
questions.
hard hitting questions. Someone who deserves their flowers. God, I don't know that I could give you. I mean,
You don't know a volunteer, a community leader, someone that's a tournament director, another coach that you associate with. You don't know anybody.
no, I know plenty. That's the problem. When you say name one thing from my podcast that I've learned, I have 100. When you say give someone their flowers, I've got. I mean, anyone that I'm coming across. There are so many guys and coaches and players
Yeah.
that is hard to single out one, and then you single out one, you feel like you're shunning the rest of them.
For the record,
um
when I wrote these questions, one of them, like most of them, say like, "What are three things you've learned from interviews and things like that?" But then like I said, I could talk forever. So then I'm like, oh, I'll just say one, and then if I'm feeling it, I'll be like, "But could you give me another one?" But
let
we
me
would
let
run out of
me let
time.
me let me move on. Let me marinate on that one. I'd like to give you someone currently that I could single out. um that's a good question though.
All right. Well, this is the question I usually end the interview with. So it's buying you at least a few more seconds, and I could tell a story too if you want for more thinking time. But that just people want the real answer. So
You know
my
what?
quote.
Hold on. You know what? Hold on. I'll give you one. I'll give
Okay.
you one. I'll give you one guy. Whatever. I'm trying to make this like the most earth-shattering flowers of all time. I'll give you one. I'll give you one guy that I'm proud of that I want to give a shout out. So we had a Colombian volunteer. His name's Diego Garavito. My wife coached golf at Duke. And
Mhm.
so he was actually dating a girl on the golf team. That's how we came in touch with him. He played at Bethune-Cookman, and he just said, I just want to be a coach. That's all I care about. And so he was our volunteer. That's back when they weren't making any money. He stayed in Durham for 2 years. He's a phenomenal coach. He taught me a bunch of really cool things, actually, that I had never heard of in terms of tactics and in match stuff. And he ended up leaving. He went to Texas State for a couple years, and then he went to UNC Charlotte. And UNC Charlotte made the NCAA tournament for the first time, women's tennis team, and the first time in their history this year. And he was the Carolina Regional Assistant Coach of the Year. And so he came from, absolutely nothing, has helped build up a program, is coach of the year, and is like one of the more passionate people I know. So if that's what giving flowers is, I'm giving Diego flowers.
I think that's a great answer. See, I knew you'd come up with somebody. That's perfect. My
Yeah.
last question is pretty simple. We want to talk to on this podcast. We want to talk to coaches, community leaders, tennis brains, people passionate about the game. Who do you think needs to come on the Grassroots Tennis podcast? Keep in mind, whoever you say, you have to help us get them on the pod because
Mm.
let's be honest, you're the man with the connections. I'm merely, a passenger on this journey, asking the tough questions, as you've said. But who has a story to share or just needs the opportunity to share information or to give back?
I would say Kelly Jones would be a good one for you. Like I said, I learned so much from him, and he was more than willing to share his path from being a junior to an NCAA champ to a pro, and then very knowledgeable, amazing communicator. That's one for sure. I mean, I remember he was so excited to be on, and he was so great with everything. I would say Kelly. I learned a lot from his episode.
I would love to have him on. I actually enjoyed that episode. Um, No, that would be a great one. And then obviously, if you think of anyone else, you'll have to let me know. When I was first doing this, I was harassing people and saying, "Well, I need you to give me two names. Give me like a coach or community leader, and then give me like a player, a junior that's passionate, someone at the college level, any level." But that's a pretty good answer, so I'm not going to harass you. Plus, I've got
Appreciate
a
that.
I've got a lot of podcasts scheduled over the next 2 months, and it's super exciting, and I want to grow this. But I'm gonna stop harassing for two names because my schedule is ridiculously full. I don't know how I'm gonna keep up. It's fun. Here's what I'm going to say for those of you out there listening to the Grassroots Tennis podcast, please, please, please do us all a favor. Go check out the Baseline Intelligence podcast. And I need you to hit that subscribe button. And then I need you to go and find Jonathan Stokke or Stokke Tennis on Instagram. And I need you to follow that page because this man is highly qualified. And honestly, I do not know how you are not like coaching one of the major Division I programs right in the nation or are currently working on tour with somebody. I think that your content is excellent. I do really enjoy everything that you put out. I don't know what else to say. If in a year from now I'm half as successful as you with doing this, I would be ecstatic. So, sir, thank you for coming on. I appreciate it. The tennis world appreciates it. Somebody who's going to find this we're documenting all the tennis brains that we can get a hold of that finds these interviews like 10 years from now appreciates it. But we appreciate you. So thank you so much.
Hey, I appreciate those flowers, man.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And if you people out there like what we're doing here at the Grassroots Tennis Podcast, make sure to hit that subscribe button. You can currently find our content on Instagram, obviously with the follow. We are currently moving everything to Twitter and to TikTok at Grassroots Tennis Pod. You can also subscribe to us on both YouTube and Spotify. We're currently working on getting all of our episodes over to all places that you like to stream your podcast. Coach, thank you. I went a little too long, but I really appreciate it.
Oh, thanks for having me on. This is great.
All right, you take care.